Hi, my name is Trent Untriner, and I did my statistical article analysis on the first generation college students versus which major they ended up selecting. So let's get started. The purpose of conducting this statistical test is to see if there is an association between the first generation college students, so whether or not they are a first generation college student, and which major they end up selecting. So the hypothesis of the group who ended up conducting this test in real life was, are first generation college students more likely to pick a major with a set career path, or are the first generation college students more likely to pick a major with less risk of unemployment? So those two kind of go together, versus whether or not they are not a first generation college student employment and they choose a more risky career path. So we'll start off with, what is a low risk major? So probably the best example of a low risk major currently is petroleum engineering. So it has the highest rate of employment of any degree, 98%, and it also has one of the highest starting salaries straight out of your 4-year degree, which is $128,000. So 6 figures straight out of college is not too shabby, especially when there's a 98% unemployment rate. The only problem with this very, very low risk major is the fact that it is very, very difficult to actually complete. So another one of the things that these guys decided to test for is the differences between, or see if there's a possible lurking variable, is, are minorities equally as likely to select one of these low-risk majors as the majority, either white or Asian, populations of college students. So, and then what is a high-risk major? So, probably what is considered to be one of the more high-risk majors would be psychology and or an English degree. Unless, of course, you want to be a barista at Starbucks, then English degrees are where you should go for. So psychology, it has one of the highest rates of unemployment straight out of college, because there are not a ton of job openings when it comes to being like school counselor, psychiatrist, etc. Therefore, a lot of psychology majors will end up going into criminology, which is a little bit more lucrative, or end up doing their own practice, which almost more than half of independent psychiatry practices fail within the first 2 years, just because it's really hard to distinguish yourself from some of the more established psychiatrists. So, like I said before, their hypothesis is the first generation students are significantly more likely to choose low risk majors than their non-first generation counterparts. So the method for this test, the data was retrieved from a population of 9,000 students ages 12 through 16 in the National Longitudinal Study of Youth 1997 cohort. The population of that sample was all students in 1997, and the sample for this particular test was all 1,981 students in the NLSY 97, ages 12 through 16 in 1997, who earned college degrees by 2010. So let's get to the nitty-gritty of the test. So they decided to use a chi-square test for association. They met all the rules of the chi-square test, and they fit first-generation college students versus major selection as their main one. But they also decided, like I said before, to control for all other lurking variables such as ethnicity, gender, family income, and the results were pretty cool in my opinion. So the sample was 1,981. Like I said before, the actual chi-squared statistic value was 24.84, and the p-value for this test was 0.0057, so it was statistically significant at any confidence interval or significance level. So here is what I was talking about before. So they controlled for income, whether or not they were male or female, also if they were a minority, And the results were all basically the same. They all rejected the null hypothesis, which was there is no association between the two, which is pretty cool. Especially, it's really good for those first-gen college students in terms of being successful, which is nice. And then finally, the conclusion for the whole thing. We do reject the null hypothesis. The group rejected the null hypothesis, and they concluded that there is an association between first-gen college students and the major that they select. Look at how happy those people are. Graduated, got their degree, and this is all regardless of the lurking variables, such as families' income, whether or not they're male or female, or what race they are, which is pretty cool. And the test was done in a pretty great way, personally, I think, but there are a couple of things I believe could have been done to make it even better. First off, this seems like a pretty easy thing to do a census for. Just test every single college student and see if they were a first time. I mean, you can really only ask them 2 questions. Well, 3 questions, I guess. What is your degree? Are you a first generation college student? And that's about it. And easy peasy. And then bias. There is a little bit of bias towards successful graduates in this test due to the fact that we're probably going to be more likely to respond to a voluntary response survey if you were successful versus if you weren't. So that's one little thing, which the census would take care of all of the bias by asking them, are they a first generation college student, and then what degree they got. You will all be set. So thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.